What a wild night it was for the Golden State Warriors. Just when it looked like the team was sleepwalking through a forgettable preseason game, they turned on the Jets and reminded everyone exactly why they're still one of the most dangerous squads in the NBA when it counts. Now, yeah, they were trailing for most of the game, at one point down by as many as 18 points, and against a team like the Blazers, that's definitely not ideal. But what matters more than the early hole was the response. And man, what a response it was. That kind of comeback energy doesn't happen by accident. It takes chemistry, grit, and belief, and the Warriors showed all three in spades. Look, nobody's pretending this was some perfect performance. Far from it. There were sloppy moments, especially that brutal turnover by Quinn Post that handed shot in sharp an easy dunk. You hate to see that. But here's the thing, Post bounced back. He came right back and dropped 16 points, showing exactly the kind of short memory and mental toughness you want to see from a young guy trying to carve out a role on a contending team. And the truth is, this roster feels more connected than it has in years. You can feel the difference. There's a real sense of togetherness, of shared purpose that hasn't been this present since that 2022 championship run. Of course, the headline is always going to be Steph Curry. And for good reason. The guy was electric. It felt like watching vintage Steph again, hitting impossible shots, controlling the tempo, bending the defense to his will. But here's where things get tricky. As great as Steph was, and he really was the engine of the comeback, he can't be the only one consistently carrying that offensive burden. If he's dropping 25, 30, even 40 points in a preseason game just to keep the team afloat, that's not sustainable over 82 games. No one else cracked 20, and while yes, Post had a solid night and a handful of others chipped in, the Warriors still need a clear second and third scoring option to emerge. That's where the concerns start to creep in. Draymond Green and Jimmy Butler didn't play, and that clearly has an impact, especially in terms of defense and leadership. But offensively, Jimmy's more of a grinder, not a guy who's going to explode for a flurry of threes. He'll get you buckets, drive, get to the line, but he's not spacing the floor like a sniper. And Cumming, as talented as he is, he still feels too similar to Jimmy in that regard. Athletic, aggressive, physical, but not necessarily the guy who's going to drop a quick 15 points in 4 minutes and blow the game wide open. Maybe Buddy Hield becomes that guy. Maybe Pods has another breakout moment like he did against the Lakers. But maybe isn't good enough in this league. When you look around the Western Conference, you see teams that can hit you from every angle. Take the Phoenix Suns, for example. You've got Devin Booker and Jalen Green, two guys who can go nuclear in a heartbeat, turn a 2-point game into a blowout in a couple possessions. The Warriors, even with Steph, don't have that kind of offensive firepower from multiple sources, at least not yet. And that's where the pressure builds. Because once teams start blitzing Steph like we saw in that brutal Rocket series, someone else has to step up. Who is that guy? And are they ready? Now, one of the reasons to stay optimistic is the spacing. The Warriors finally have some pieces that open up the floor in ways they haven't had in a while. Al Horford, for one, has been a sneaky good pickup. He may not be the fastest or most athletic big on the floor, but he stretches defenses and creates space for slashers like Jimmy and Kuminga to attack. He's smart, he knows where to be, and he can still knock down shots when left open. But Horford can't carry that load for 30-plus minutes a night during the regular season. His legs aren't built for that grind anymore. That's where someone like Quinn Post comes in. He's going to have to eat minutes, bang inside, and hold his own against some of the league's big bodies, and that's not going to be easy. In fact, we already saw him get pushed around a bit by Donovan Clingan. And if that's what's happening now, what's going to happen when he's up against the likes of Nikola Jokic or Victor Wembanyama in the playoffs? Speaking of Wembanyama, let's just take a moment. That guy is terrifying. He's not just tall. He's long, fast, and already incredibly skilled. He had one of those moments the other night where he barely jumped, just casually extended an arm, and erased a shot like it was nothing. The Spurs are going to be a problem. Same goes for the Rockets. Both of those teams are young, hungry, well-coached, and they've got size and athleticism. That's the kind of squad that can give the Warriors headaches in a 7-game series, especially if Steph is the only one who consistently shows up offensively. Now, let's pivot to Friday. Final preseason game. Warriors versus Clippers. And this isn't just some meaningless tune-up. This is the game that's supposed to get everyone locked in. We're talking real minutes for the starters. Probably not full-blown 35-minute workloads, but close. Expect Steph, Draymond, Jimmy, all to be in that 25 to 30-minute range as they gear up for opening night against the Lakers. It's a chance to test the rotations, to see what this group looks like at nearly full strength. And I'll say this, the Clippers, even with all their drama, are a scary team when they're healthy. Top to bottom, they've got depth. James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Bradley Beal, Brook Lopez, John Collins, Ivica Zubac. It's ridiculous. Even if half those guys are coming off the bench, that's a squad you can't take lightly. But here's the wild card, that ongoing sponsorship scandal with Aspiration. It might not affect what happens on the court directly, but it's definitely hanging over the team like a cloud. Every post-game, every press conference, somebody's going to bring it up, and that wears on a locker room. Until the league wraps up its investigation, the Clippers are going to be stuck with that distraction. The Warriors need to use that to their advantage. Come out focused, play sharp, and send a message heading into the regular season. Back to Steph for a second. What really stood out last night wasn't just the shot making, but how often he got to the line. 12 for 13 on free throws. That's a big deal. The new hot contact rule seems to be working in his favor. And if that keeps up, it's going to be a massive weapon this year. Think about the old James Harden days when he was living at the stripe and stacking up easy points. If Steph can get to the line like that regularly, especially when defenses try to crowd him, it adds a whole new layer to his offensive impact. It also gives the Warriors a more reliable scoring option in tight games, and that's going to matter come crunch time. Looking ahead, there's a lot to like, but there's also a lot that still needs to be figured out. ESPN recently dropped a preseason prediction that had the Warriors finishing first in the West with a 59-win season. That's bold. Ahead of the Thunder, ahead of the Nuggets, ahead of the Suns. The logic? Momentum. They're riding the high from last year's strong finish. They've got more clarity with their roster, and supposedly fewer question marks than most contenders. I get it, and honestly, I don't think it's that crazy. A top 3 finish feels absolutely possible, especially if the team can stay healthy and build chemistry early. But let's not get carried away. We've seen how quickly things can shift in the NBA. One injury, one slump, one chemistry issue, and suddenly everything's off the rails. The good news is the Warriors are starting this season in a much better spot than they were last year. Jimmy's had a full offseason with the team. Horford and Post are settling in, and the young guys are showing flashes. If they can find that balance between leaning on Steph and empowering the rest of the roster to take over when needed, this team could be a legitimate problem for anyone. And that's why Friday's game is going to be so telling. It's the last rehearsal, the final chance to fine-tune before the real battle begins. The Clippers might be stacked, but with that cloud of controversy hanging over them and the Warriors locked in on continuing their momentum, this could be the perfect storm for a statement win. One of the most underrated storylines heading into the regular season is just how valuable this preseason stretch has been for the Warriors to figure out their depth chart and get a real sense of who's ready to step up when it matters. You could talk about the stars all day, and yes, Steph Curry is still clearly at the top of his game, but it's the supporting cast that's going to make or break this season. Guys like Quinn and Post, Pods, and Buddy Hield are not just filling spots on the bench. They're potentially deciding whether Golden State is a title contender or just another playoff team trying to punch above its weight. And so far, it's been a mixed bag. Let's go back to Post for a moment. It's obvious he's got a feel for the game. The way he spaces the floor and his willingness to shoot when open are big positives. His 16 points in the comeback win were impressive, no doubt. But his defensive physicality in the post still isn't where it needs to be. He's getting bodied by stronger players, and that's a problem, especially considering the West is full of dominant bigs who live in the paint. The regular season is going to expose that quickly if he doesn't find a way to add more toughness down low. The coaching staff knows it too, and while his offensive upside is exciting, that won't mean much if he can't hold his ground when the games slow down and everything gets more physical. The same goes for the rest of the rotation. Pod's had a big night against the Lakers, and when he's on, His energy is contagious. But he's young, and that inconsistency still shows. One night, he looks like a future sixth man of the year, and the next, he disappears completely. That's normal for developing players, but the Warriors don't have time for too many growing pains this year. Not with how deep the West is. Buddy Hield brings experience in shooting, but he's not always the most reliable defender, and that's something that's going to matter a lot more than usual this season, especially with how tight things get in the fourth quarter. That brings us to the larger point about this roster. It's versatile, it's deep, but it still needs to find its rhythm. And that's where Friday's game becomes so important. It's not just about winning, it's about playing with control, about testing rotations, and about seeing who really responds when the lights start getting a little brighter. The starters need to show they're in sync, that the ball is moving, that the defensive switches are tight. Because the Lakers aren't going to come in soft next week. They're going to be fully loaded, and Golden State needs to match that energy from the opening tip. Speaking of the Lakers, the matchup on opening night is going to be a serious test. Everyone's expecting a showdown between Steph and the full-strength Lakers squad featuring Marcus Smart and Luka Doncic, and that's not something the Warriors have seen yet this preseason. That backcourt alone creates huge matchup questions. How does Golden State handle the Smart-Luka combination on defense? Does Jimmy take the Luka assignment right away? Does Steph get hidden on a lesser shooter so he can conserve energy for offense? These are real strategic questions that have to be sorted out, and quickly. But here's what the Warriors have that most teams don't. Championship DNA. That's not a buzzword. It's real. When things get tough, this group knows how to dig in and get stops. They know how to move the ball, how to communicate, how to keep the energy up even when shots aren't falling. And that's why you can never count them out, even when they're down double digits in the second half of a preseason game. There's a professionalism here that's rare, and it's led by Steph, Draymond, and Jimmy. Those guys set the tone, and everyone else falls in line. Before we continue, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any exclusive Dubs updates. Let's keep going. Whispers are swirling around the Golden State Warriors locker room as reports suggest that the once unshakable camaraderie between Stephen Curry and Draymond Green might be fraying once more. The duo, long celebrated for their on-court synergy and fiery leadership, could be on the brink of reigniting one of the most talked-about rifts in modern NBA history. Sources close to the team hint that tensions have been simmering for weeks, fueled by disagreements over strategy, playing time, and leadership roles. The Warriors have thrived for years under the dynamic of Curry's sharpshooting brilliance, paired with Green's defensive intensity and vocal presence. However, insiders suggest that what made the pair legendary could now be the source of strain, as differing priorities and clashing personalities clash under the high-pressure spotlight of championship expectations. Fans are already buzzing, drawing parallels to the friction that made headlines during previous seasons when Curry and Green publicly disagreed over key moments in playoff games. While the Warriors have historically weathered internal storms, the timing of this potential fallout, amid a season packed with playoff implications, adds fuel to the rumor mill. Some believe that the tension could either motivate the team to unprecedented heights or threaten the cohesion that has been their hallmark. Speculation is mounting about whether head coach Steve Kerr can mediate before the issue escalates. Those close to the team insist that, off the court, Curry and Green maintain mutual respect, but the intensity of their professional relationship has always been a double-edged sword. Sources claim subtle digs and sharp exchanges have been noticed during practices, leaving teammates uneasy and stirring whispers in the stands. As the Warriors prepare for a critical stretch of games, all eyes are on the Golden State locker room. Will the legendary duo reconcile as they have in the past? Or is this the beginning of a new chapter in one of the NBA's most famous internal sagas? One thing is certain, wherever Curry and Green go, drama seems to follow, and fans are eagerly waiting to see if history might repeat itself once again. Stay updated exclusively with the latest Dub Nation news. Subscribe to our channel and hit the like button to keep getting daily updates on the Warriors. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. Your input is essential for the Dubs community. Stay tuned for the next video.